Do you have a bag with a broken plastic buckle? If so, stay tuned. I'm going to show you how to upgrade this to metal buckles. Alright, so to make some new buckles like this, you're just going to need a few things. An old wire coat hanger, some wire clippers, a pair of pliers. I find vice grips work really well because you can lock them on the wire. To make these joints, I actually just solder these, and for that I use this Benzomatic little butane soldering iron and some solder. Also, this is optional, but these wire coat hangers typically have a coating on them, and if you want to get it shiny like this, you'll need varying grits of sandpaper. Once we get our buckles made, you can either sew it by hand or use a sewing machine. So to make this rectangular buckle, you can see I've got a joint in the middle of one of the long ends. So that's the end I'm actually going to have sewn into the strap, so you'll never see that. You'll just see the nice smooth end. You may not necessarily need to solder these closed depending on how heavy or how thick your coat hanger is. This was a fairly lightweight coat hanger, and so without soldering it there in the middle, there was just too much flex, and I was afraid it would flex apart and deform. So as you can see, I've already made both of my buckles, so I'm just going to kind of walk you through the steps to do this. First, you want to measure your strap width. These are 1-inch straps, so you need a little over an inch width for your buckle. The buckle that I'm replacing is this one here, and this measures about a 1/4 inch in between. I made mine a little bit oversized, but I'll show you a trick on what I did with that. So you'll need 4 to 5 inches depending on what size buckle you're making. So you cut off your section of coat hanger. You want to only use a nice straight section, and then if you want to remove the coating, an easy way to do that is once you've got the straight section clipped off, chuck it up in a drill and spin the drill, and then use your sandpaper and sand it smooth. For those buckles, I started out with 220, and then I went to an 800, 1500, and a 2000, so it's almost got a polished look. So completely optional. You could also paint these once you get them completed, just to give them a little corrosion resistance. So once you've got the straight section, you need to mark out where your bends need to be. What I originally did was I just figured roughly about the distance of one of the long sides, and I'd put a mark. And then my vice grips, the jaws, are 3/8 of an inch wide. So wherever my mark was, I would clamp the vice grips on, and I just bend this around. And then I would bend the other end around like this. From there, you can either hold it up to your strap or measure it out and put you another mark where your next bend needs to be. You'll unclamp your vice grips. Clamp it back on and bend the next section around. And I'm just doing a quick demonstration here, but try to keep your bends nice and tight against your pliers. And then finally, we bend our last edge over so that they're overlapping like that. So once we've got that bent, you can straighten any of your bends out as needed, and then you can see we're overlapping. Now you just need to cut through both of these. I usually give it a nice crimp so that it makes a mark across both pieces, and then I'll cut them individually. When you cut this, you got to watch out because you will have a projectile that flies. And there we go. Using a hacksaw would give you a little cleaner cut. From there, you'll just use your pliers to give you a little extra leverage. Get the ends lined up nice and tight, and then go through and solder that. So I'm not going to do that. I've already got these complete. If you leave a little excess of solder, you can always sand it smooth just so it's not catching on your straps and tearing your straps. Okay, so once you get to this point, you need to remove the stitching that held the old buckle in, and then sew the new buckle in. Now I'm only going to show you, I'm going to replace both of these just so we have metal buckles for both straps, but I'm only going to show you the process for one. So you can either use a seam ripper, or if you just have a razor blade, you can use a razor blade. But you just want to get down in between the strapping and cut through the threads. And for nylon strapping like this, a razor blade may actually work better, just because these seam rippers will get in between the weave of the strap. So you got to be careful that you're not actually cutting the strap. So there we go. I have the old buckle half removed, and there's the new one. And we still have the folds that are made into, or that have kind of been formed into this from being in that position for so long. So we can just slot that back in there and give some stitches. Now these straps are made of nylon, and it would be best to use nylon thread. I don't have any, so I'm just using an all-purpose thread. So as I mentioned earlier, if you don't have a sewing machine, this is a really easy thing to do just with needle and thread. I've got the machine here. It makes quick work of it. For thicker material like this, if you are using a machine, you want a little bit longer stitch length. I'm going to do probably a 3, I think I'm going to start with a 3mm stitch, see how that works out. There we go. Just snip the ends of your threads off, and good as new. There we go. Got a nice metal buckle. This is a buddy's tool roll, and he keeps it in a dry bag, so I'm not real concerned with this thing getting a ton of moisture and rusting or anything. If it was going to be exposed to moisture, it may not be a bad idea to either use stainless wire or paint it or put some kind of coating to prevent it from rusting. So I'm going to finish up this other strap, replace this buckle, and get this back to my buddy. If you have any questions or comments, be sure to leave them down below. I'll also post links to anything I used down in the description. And till next time, we'll see you later.